Hello friends, and welcome to only the second Wild Journeys Q&A. This time round I am in Kruger National Park and I'm driving around the Pretoriuscorp area just for the afternoon. Just going to be doing these loops around here, so while we do this, who knows, maybe we'll find some nice wildlife sightings. Thank you for all the questions on YouTube, Instagram and Patreon. I think we'll get started with the Patreon questions. AJ, if you were in front of a group of young students, what advice would you give them to get them interested in conservation and protection of wildlife? Well, I think before anyone actually ever wants to be passionate about protecting something, they have to first kind of fall in love with it. So I'd say firstly, develop a deep connection and an understanding of nature, and with that you'll just naturally be inclined to want to protect it and do what you can to help the situation. So in simple, I would say get outside, ask yourself some questions, get curious about what it is you're seeing and experiencing, try to figure it out, and from there, trust me, like, things get very interesting very quickly, and from there you start developing this deep love for nature. Then the next step would be to protect it if that's what you're wanting to do. Roaming Quilter. Hi Byron, my questions would be: number one, have you explored wildlife photography outside of Africa? And if so, where? And if not, is that something you would like to do in the future? I would definitely love to do that in the future. I have not yet done that. I've only really been focused on Southern Africa for now, for the most obvious reason being things get expensive. But we're getting there. It's a slow journey, one step at a time. If I had to go anywhere outside of Africa right now, it would probably be the Pantanal. I'd love to see some jaguars and all the other incredible wildlife there, the bird life. I'd just love to spend like a week or two there and just really soak it up for the first time. It would be quite special. And number two, how safe is it as a foreigner to do a self-drive safari staying in tented camps? I'm keen to do this, but everyone is telling me I am crazy. Thank you very much. Well, you're definitely not crazy, because if you're crazy, then that would make me crazy, and thousands of other people crazy. I see what they're getting from, but it comes from a lack of knowledge, I think, and I wouldn't let other people's fears hold you back from doing what you want to do. Follow your heart. I would argue that being in Kruger National Park feels a lot safer than being in other parts of South Africa or the world. Don't let other people's fears become your fears. Alright, Cam Cock. When you are on a self-drive, do you go out with a planned route or let the bush guide you? Right now I have no clue where I'm going or kind of where I am, because I'm so focused on these questions. So this afternoon I'm letting the bush guide me, but in general I will kind of have like a plan A, which is very rough and kind of gives me an idea of like the areas I want to go through, but it's super flexible. So if, say for example, I get caught up somewhere with a really nice sighting for a while, then I'm always very happy to change it and kind of go with the flow from then on. Or if things aren't going very well sightings wise, then I'm not afraid to just stop, do a U-turn and completely go in a different direction. Sometimes the most enjoyable game drives are the ones where you're not so hard on yourself when it comes to the route, and you really are just going at your own pace, taking a road that like calls to you. And when you do then end up having a great experience on that route, it becomes really rewarding. Sithandwa Africa, do you do this full time? What tools do you use to edit your content? I am doing this full time. I'm doing my best to do this full time, and it's very difficult but also very rewarding. I always have to remind myself that I am currently living the dream and that I'm not trying to get to the dream, if that makes sense. When it comes to editing, I use Final Cut Pro. I think it's just what I started on like 2 years ago, and that's what I got comfortable with, and it was all just pretty much self-taught. A lot of YouTube tutorials and figuring things out as we go along, and slowly but surely things are getting a bit easier, faster, slowly building up the skill set. Shan 47, favorite road in Kruger. There's a few. I would say the S23. Just to explain it, it's kind of between Malalan and Afzal. It's here in the southern Kruger. I'm going to be exploring it over the next couple of days when I go down to Berg and Dal. But what makes it just so beautiful is that it starts at the Biermeeti Weir, which is a great spot for birding and even predator sightings. Nice place to just stop and spend some time at. That's insane. You will not believe it. We have a big male leopard in a tree. Oh, goodness. It is much warmer today, so I think he's just in this tree to get a bit of a breeze while being in the shade. He's panting quite hard. He might have a full stomach as well, which wouldn't help with the heat. It looks like he's quite settled there for now. Let's continue with the questions underneath this leopard. Mikey, overall thoughts on your time at Kruger National Park? Recommended? Yes, I'd definitely recommend it. It depends what you're looking for though, I guess. If you're looking for sightings of the big five and like predators, things like that, it might not be the place for you, but if you're looking to slow down and really appreciate the scenery and maybe some interesting bird life, good chance of elephants and things like that, then definitely the place for you. If you do go, I would recommend staying at Klopi Camp, which is in the Big Five section. Yeah, it's just such a beautiful, like safari tented camp style on a dam, very private, and it's really well looked after. When it comes to safari tents, I mean, apart from Tambuti, that's like my favorite type of setup. The other bonus is it's only like 3.5 hours, I think, from Johannesburg. So if you're a Joburger, very easy for a weekend trip there. Kyla, what's your favorite animal to take photos of? That has to be lions at the moment. This morning I actually had a really incredible sighting of 9 lions feeding on a freshly caught buffalo, like maybe just a few hours back in the night, but quite incredible. Just spent like an hour with them alone, and there's just always something to point the camera at. So if one's looking away, the other one will be looking at you, or maybe there's going to be interaction, especially if there's cubs. And once you get to know them quite well, you can kind of predict what they might do next and get ready for the shot. Just now that I think of it, it's been a pretty amazing day. Another one would be baboons. I think there's obviously just something about primates that reminds us of us, and we can relate to them when it comes to certain behaviors and things that they do, and that can be quite comical as well. Ranger King, when last were you in Pilansberg? Funny enough, just a couple of weeks ago. Me and my girlfriend just went for the weekend, just for ourselves to have a relaxing time out there, and yeah, it was great. No video, but more just a complete enjoyment of the bush. Yeah, very special always. The Global Journer, chances of seeing a white lion at Timbavati in November. I don't know what the chances are. I think there's now a few prides in that region that has white lions in them, and I'm not sure which camps see them. I'm a bit out of the loop when it comes to the pride dynamics. I think if you're planning a visit and that's like a real goal of yours to see white lions, then just definitely check with the camp to see if they do maybe regularly see that pride, just to avoid disappointments. And I would say even just overall, like, keep your expectations in check, because it's always very 50-50 and less. If you aren't doing Timbavati, then stay at either Manyeleti, Orpen, Tambuti or Marula. They're all in that like Orpen area. You always have the chance of seeing the Birmingham Pride there, who of course have a few white lions in them. Yeah, so that leopard wasn't so happy when another vehicle arrived, so he decided to move somewhere else. So we'll move on. Yeah, some leopards are just more relaxed than others when it comes to vehicles. Sometimes one is the limit for them. Jamie Wild, do you think a wheelchair user could do what you are doing? I think obviously the main challenge would be the driving. I'm not too sure what your situation is with driving, but if it is a bit of a challenge, then maybe partnering up with someone would be the way to go. And a lot of the camps, I think actually all the camps here really do have wheelchair accessible units. Of course that would come with its challenges, but it's something that I would watch for sure, because I'd be quite curious and interested to see a unique perspective on the journey out here. So yeah, I mean, I'd definitely watch that. Where did you, well, definitely still haven't learned how to drive. Where did you learn to do videos and pictures like nowadays? Pretty much all self-taught. When I started guiding, within the first couple of weeks, I borrowed an old camera from my brother. I think it was a Canon 6D, and I just started shooting away, and I was absolutely terrible in the beginning. Like, I could kind of frame a picture creatively, but everything else was just really not good. And from there I would like just start following people on Instagram that share tips and tricks on how to photograph wildlife. And honestly, I was fortunate enough to have so much practice out there while guiding that the skills developed quite quickly. So I would say the best way to learn, if that's what you're kind of asking as well, is to just get out there and start doing it, make mistakes, realize what the mistake is, then try not do it again. Yeah, same goes for video, all self-taught over the last 2 years or so. For video, do you use the rule of thumb for shutter speed, half times frames per second, or just what gives even exposure? Apologies for those who are not into photography and all that. It's something that I've always been aware of, but didn't care about in the beginning at all. I just wanted to kind of film and put something together, and over the last 6 months or so, I've been trying to follow that rule a bit more strictly, but obviously with a bit of leeway. I always prioritize getting the shots rather than trying to get the perfect shot and missing out on the actual shot. So especially when things get bright out here, like even now, I've actually just started using a 2-in-1 ND filter and a polarizer. Let me just show you this quickly, just to bring down the exposure so that I can actually shoot at twice the frame rate, which is 60 at the moment. So I'm shooting at 125 because there is no 120. So this right here screws on. This main twisting over here is the actual polarizer, circular polarizer, and this over here is the ND filter. The only problem is when you turn this, it turns the polarizer as well, so not too happy with that. But yeah, I'm not very strict about it, to be honest. I'd rather just get the shot. Tim Jim Healy, what African wildlife destinations are you heading to next? I don't have much of a plan, to be honest, apart from the next couple of months. It's very much step by step at the moment. Budget plays a big role. Coming up is a walk in Pafuri, a Pafuri trail, which is going to be incredible. I'll be there with the safari expert and some friends. We'll be doing a pretty epic 5-day trail right at the north of Kruger. So look out for that over the next few months. And I think later this year, I was planning on doing like a full north to south Kruger trip. I wanted to kind of bring it towards Kruger for the rest of the year. We'll see what the budget allows for. It might just be a Kruger north trip, which I haven't actually done properly in a while. Mina Malan, I think. Do you sometimes feel that you get too familiar with your experiences or sightings? That's a very interesting question. It does get a bit familiar, or I guess you could say the word is desensitized. Become desensitized. So if I'd seen that leopard back there 5 years ago, I think my heart would have been like falling out my chest. But this time, I mean, I skipped a few beats, but it wasn't exactly like my legs were shaking and I was like freaking out. So yeah, I guess it's natural to become a bit familiar with things, and especially with photographers and videographers, like we can get down on ourselves sometimes. And in those moments, all you could ever wish for is an elephant, even if it's in the distance. but then on another day you're seeing herd after herd and eventually you're driving past them. It's weird. It's all about context, and I guess it's just natural. But what I have realized is if I have an amazing sighting and I don't leave that feeling like really overjoyed, then there's something that's not in alignment within myself. And that's the point where I go, okay, there's something I need to look at. Like, what is it that's distracting me from the present moment so much that I'm not like in awe with it in the way that I probably should be? So then that's a signal for me to just go do some inner work, or whatever you want to call it. Victoria 2K, are your photographs not for sale anymore? They were beautiful, love to purchase one. Thanks so much, Victoria. What happened was I changed the website. I've been just working on the website. It was costing way too much for what was coming back in, and I needed to kind of rethink that whole situation. I am going to be sorting that out over the next month or so. Thanks for the interest though, that's really, really cool to hear. Alexoronics, hope I'm pronouncing that alright. Will you ever go to Rietflay Nature Reserve for a day? Maybe the next Q&A, when we one day reach 30,000 subscribers, we'll do Rietflay for a day. That could be quite cool. Garlic Bread Chronicles, love the name. Thinking back to your coexistence documentary, how can we as the public do our part in conserving our wild areas or parks without it being without over commercialization? More tourists equals more revenue equals more money to be put to cause. Can't read anymore. Which is why then, in my opinion, a double-edged sword when we look at the state of safaris in Kenya and the southern parts of Kruger. Yeah, I really do agree with you. And just a couple of days ago, my friend Nick shared some footage from I think it was Kenya, the migration, and my goodness, it's become ridiculous there. Southern Kruger definitely has its faults too, especially around like between Lower Sabi and Skukuza. It's the Wild West out there. I would say do your research first of all when it comes to the ethics of a safari company. There will be tons of reviews out there, and I think if you are planning on booking a safari to places like that, then there are options out there that do directly give back. Like a good portion of their profit goes straight back into conservation, and they should have that quite clearly stated on their websites. And if you're unsure, just get a hold of them and they'd like love to tell you all about it. There are also these experiences that you can come on for weeks at a time, where you're basically a volunteer, and at the same time you're having quite an incredible experience out in the bush, living out there, working on conservation projects, and you learn quite a lot and end up seeing some amazing things, and probably make some good friends as well in the process. Safari experts, how's it, Phil? What are your top 3 bucket list destinations? One that's stood out for me for quite some time is South Luangwa, or maybe even Lower Zambezi, just on the other side of the river from where we were camping last year in Mana Pools. A friend of mine was just there recently, and my goodness, it looked incredible. So that's definitely top of the list right now. These things change. I'd love to do gorillas and chimps at some point. These are like serious bucket list things. They're like probably not going to happen anytime soon. How would you encourage first-time visitors to the bush to expand their expectations beyond the big 5? It might sound obvious, but I would say focus on the little things in order to find the big things. You can't force, because then you end up missing everything if you don't come across the big 5, for example. So let's say you're out and you really gunning it for those lions. You're looking everywhere for a lion. The rocks are starting to look like a lion looking at you, and you become so like fixated on that one goal that you're missing everything else in the now. And that's when, I know this is going to sound a bit woo-woo, but that's bringing you out of the present. And what's happening in the present is, like, right next to you is a fork-tailed drongo, and it's maybe like hawking some insects or whatever. And while you're here and you're switching the car off, you notice like an alarm call coming from that side. You're like, what's going on there? There's like a bunch of birds going crazy there. You hear some rustling in the bushes, you carry on, and then you find, I don't know, something insane like a leopard or whatever. But it's just an example of how things actually happen out here. It's all by chance, and I feel like nature rewards you by really appreciating it on a deep level. So we stop for the bird or the dung beetle, whatever it is, the flower, and you get rewarded. Like here's something big for you because you're connecting with us on a cool level. And that's when it is the most rewarding, because you feel like things are just happening. You're not forcing things. I'm really big on that, and it's something that I have to remind myself of often. I've been guilty of it on this trip, where I've been getting down on myself for not seeing big things for a few days. And then I look back and I go, wow, I don't have much footage from that drive, but it's because I was fixated on something that wasn't in front of me. So I hope that sums it up. That's my thoughts on it all. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in for this Q&A. Thanks for the questions. Yeah, I mean, we're almost at 20,000 subscribers. Hopefully we can reach that in the next month or two. The channel's really brought so much happiness to my life, and you guys are a big part of that. If you do want to support the channel in a little bit of an extra way, I'll leave a link in the description for the Patreon accounts. The Patreons are basically supporting the channel with monthly small donations, and in return you get a few cool little bonuses, but it's mostly just a support thing. So very grateful for all of you. Look out for this Southern Kruger trip in the next few weeks. We'll see you guys soon. Cheers.